It started as a whisper and turned into a siren. Had Angel Reese just become the Chicago Sky's biggest problem instead of their centerpiece? The season answered with a string of moments you couldn't ignore: technical fouls stacking up to a suspension, a vanishing act justified by a vague back injury, and a nuclear interview where she dismissed her own locker room as not good enough. At the same time, an uncomfortable truth kept peeking through the box scores. The Sky often looked cleaner, calmer, and sharper when she wasn't on the floor. The paradox grew louder each week. How does a player who missed weeks still lead the league in turnovers? How does a self-proclaimed franchise star call for roster overhauls while her teammates are the ones quietly dragging the team through the mud? The fuse was lit in a Chicago Tribune feature that read like a roster ultimatum. "I'm not settling for the same we did this year," Reese snapped. She pushed harder. "We have to get great players. We can't settle for what we have this year." The subtext wasn't subtle. It was a bullhorn. She questioned whether Rachel Banham and Hailey Van Lith were good enough to be part of a playoff rotation and all but wrote off Courtney Van, champion, 5-time All-Star, 2-time ALW NBA first, team as too old to be a reliable piece. The Sky had already bet big on Reese, reshaping the roster around her by flipping the No. 3 overall pick, Sonia Citron, for Ariel Atkins. That was a franchise-level commitment, a way of saying this is your house, build it. Instead, Reese walked through the front door and tossed everyone's names on the trade machine. The reactions inside the locker room told you the damage wasn't just public, it was personal. Ariel Atkins, new to town and respected league-wide, handled it with grace. She defended the room, prioritized unity, and kept the focus on collective improvement. Meanwhile, the receipts on Reese were long. Early in the season, she'd been missing bunnies at the rim, clanking layups at a clip that made highlight shows for the wrong reasons. Teammates didn't run 2 microphones to humiliate her. They protected her. The same courtesy wasn't returned. Reese's critique came from a pedestal she hadn't earned yet in this league, and everyone could feel it. That's how you fracture trust, not with one quote, but with a pattern. VANDERSLOOT spoke for the veterans without ever raising her voice, contrary to what people say or think. "My age is actually not a factor. I am coming back better than ever." That's a resume talking. Banham, who has lived through enough team turbulence to read the weather, cut through the noise with fatigue disguised as indifference. "I think I just don't really care. I'm so over all this translation. I'm here to hoop. Keep me out of the drama." Even the staff's tone hardened. The organization publicly disciplined Reese, first the automatic 1-game league suspension after her 8th technical. Then, a team-issued suspension for conduct detrimental. The official language was dry and corporate. The message wasn't. The Sky would protect the culture before they protected anybody's brand. It didn't help that the technicals weren't edge of competition heat, but recurring lapses in control. Against Connecticut, she caught Alia Edwards across the head on a rebound scrum and then argued her way into the kind of whistle that had become familiar. The automatic suspension landed on the calendar like a highlighter. She'd now miss a marquee game against the Fever, a game not just circled for basketball reasons, but because the league had leaned into the Riss-Clark rivalry narrative. That night was supposed to be a spotlight. Instead, it was a reminder that spotlights are earned, not claimed. The other reminders were quieter and more damning. There were the games she missed with the back issue, the stretches she didn't travel with the team, the sightings of an empty seat where a leader should have been. Compare that with Caitlin Clark, injured earlier in the year, but ever present, living in timeouts, mapping sets with her finger, hyping Aaliyah Boston's Seals, feeding Kelsey Mitchell's flame, nudging Lexi Hull to her sweet spots. One star asked for better players. The other made the players around her better. The juxtaposition wrote itself. Chicago didn't need an anti-Clark. It needed a pro-Chicago. And then there was the basketball itself. When Reese sat, whether suspended, injured, or simply removed from the storm, the Sky often exhaled. The ball moved. Possessions didn't end with a forced touch and a cough-up. The offense took on a rhythm that felt sustainable. Reese had somehow managed to lead the league in turnovers despite missing weeks. That stat shouldn't be possible unless there's a misalignment between usage and decision-making. It pointed to a truth the team couldn't say out loud but started playing like they believed. The Sky weren't being held back by the roster. The roster was being held back by the noise. Inside that noise was a players only meeting necessary triage after a week of headlines. No one wanted to wear the target Reese had painted on the room. The conversation forced a line in the sand. Protecting the team meant refusing to be collateral in someone else's brand war. That's when the front office backed the locker room with action. The public statement about safety, respect, and accountability was corporate, yes, but it doubled as a shield for Banham, Van Lith, Vandersloot, Atkins, and every role player who had done their jobs without turning the camera on themselves. Chicago was telling the league, "We're a basketball team, not a subplot." All the while, Indiana was busy proving what leadership looks like when it's real. The Fever were supposed to crawl, not sprint. They were supposed to be calculating lottery Odds, not sniffing playoff air. The difference wasn't a secret sauce, it was habits. Clark kept the temperature low and the standards high. Small wins, stacked into belief. Boston's presence grew. Mitchell's confidence felt permanent. Role players understood their jobs because the star never talked like she was above hers. It's why fans flocked to Fever games, why jerseys flew off shelves, why that locker room sounded like a unit when it talked about flexibility, accountability, and staying the course. You don't have to be perfect to be credible. You just have to be consistent. Meanwhile, the league couldn't resist the rivalry packaging Nurse versus Clark. Heat versus Light, but the narrative got lopsided the longer it ran. One side leaned into suspensions, trade talk, and media eruptions. The other pushed a bad franchise toward relevance with film work and feed the hot hand common sense. Indiana rooted, Chicago and Indianapolis, and the postgame story wrote itself. Reese didn't travel. Day-to-day became everyday. Explanations stayed vague. The image hardened. Integrity is easy to spot. So are distractions. By now, the skies. Reflection is brutally clear. The mirror wasn't cracked. The distortion came from the person standing closest to it. Leadership isn't about demanding better players. It's about earning their trust. It's not racking up 8 technicals and daring the league to notice. It's knowing when to walk away from a whistle because your team needs you on the next possession. It's certainly not isolating yourself when you're hurt. It's showing up, sitting down, and investing in the people you asked the franchise to acquire for you. Maybe this ends with a trade. Maybe it ends with a mea culpa and an off-season of silence and work. Or maybe it ends the way most cautionary tales do. Not with a bang, but with a slow fade as the team learns it can breathe just fine without the storm. What's undeniable is what the court already told us. The sky didn't collapse in her absence. They found oxygen, and the Fever didn't wait for perfect pieces. They built a culture with what they had. So where do you stand? Should the sky move on from Angel Reese, or is there still a path back built on accountability and growth? Does Chicago owe its veterans the peace to hoop without a constant headline? Or should they double down on star volatility and hope it eventually translates? Drop your take in the comments. If you're into deep dive stories like this, where the games meet the culture, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We're just getting started.